It started with an email. A flash sale 40% off. Remote cabin rentals through a boutique booking site I'd never heard of. Normally I would have ignored it, but I was exhausted, burned out from back-to-back deadlines, a string of sleepless nights, and a breakup that had somehow felt more embarrassing than painful. My therapist kept pushing me to unplug, get off the grid, be still with myself, whatever that meant. The listing was simple: charming A-frame cabin on Pine Lake, upstate Vermont. Private, pet-friendly, and perfect for a quiet reset. The photos sold me: tall evergreens casting long shadows over a narrow dock, a triangular wooden cabin glowing with warm amber light, and a calm lake so still it mirrored the sky. It looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. I booked it for 5 nights, tossed a week's worth of flannel books and instant coffee into the back of my SUV, and left the city behind. The drive was long but scenic. By the time I pulled up to the dirt driveway, the sun had started to dip below the treetops. The cabin looked exactly like the photos, picturesque, slightly weathered, and just isolated enough to feel like I'd stepped out of time. A welcome envelope was taped to the door. Inside the key, a brief note from the owner: "Enjoy your stay, keep the fire going. The nights can get cold," in a small envelope containing a stick of white chalk. No explanation. I laughed a little, pocketed the chalk, and went inside. The place was simple but cozy. A wood stove, a battered bookshelf full of paperbacks, and a lofted bed beneath a massive triangular window facing the lake. Everything smelled like cedar and old books. I made dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and fell asleep by the fire before I could even finish my second glass. The next morning was pure silence: no cell service, no Wi-Fi. Just wine moving through the trees and the occasional rustle of something outside. I spent the day reading, walking the trail behind the cabin, and skipping stones across the lake. It felt like detox. On the second night, I was standing out on the dock, watching mist crawl over the lake, when I heard it, a low, rhythmic knocking coming from the woods behind the cabin. Not fast, not frantic, just methodical. I froze. It stopped after maybe 10 seconds. Probably a tree branch, I told myself. Wind knocking something over forest sounds. Nothing more. The next night it happened again. This time I stepped off the dock and stood perfectly still, listening, off knocking, hoeing rhythm. I couldn't tell how far it was, but it felt deliberate, measured. I went back inside, locked the door, and didn't sleep. The fourth morning, I found something strange, a symbol drawn in white chalk on the back of my SUV. It looked like a triangle with an X through it. I stood there staring at it, my mind trying to rationalize kids messing around, some local hiker prank. I washed it off and didn't mention it in the journal I'd been keeping, pretending if I didn't write it down, it wasn't real. That night, I woke up to footsteps on the deck. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I reached for my phone, no service of course, and crept to the window. Nothing, just the faint outline of the trees and lake. But when I turned to go back to bed, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the inside of the glass, written in chalk, was the same symbol triangle with an X. From inside, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor with the fire poker in hand until dawn, heart pounding, ears straining. When the sun finally rose, I packed my bag and tried to leave, but my car wouldn't start. Not dead battery, not frozen engine, just nothing, like the entire system had been drained. I didn't know what else to do. There was no signal and no way to hike back to town before nightfall. I spent that day preparing firewood candles, every door and window checked and rechecked. That night, I heard the knocking again. Closer now. No longer behind the cabin, but from beneath it. I didn't sleep again. Just stared at the fireplace and counted every creak. The final morning, I went outside and found the same chalk symbol on the dock, right where I had stood that first night. But this time it wasn't chalk. It was carved. When I finally got towed out the next afternoon, the mechanic said the battery had been cleanly disconnected, every wire stripped, and neatly coiled on the ground beneath it, like it had been. Removed, not chewed, not torn. I showed him the symbol. He went pale and mumbled something about old folklore, said he'd seen it once before years ago at a hunting cabin that had burned down under strange circumstances. He didn't say anything else. I haven't been back. Haven't even looked at a forest the same way since. Sometimes I wake up thinking I hear that knocking, 3 slow raps in the night. And sometimes I find a little piece of white chalk in my coat pocket. I never packed chalk. They told us not to take Route 19 after dark. We didn't listen. It was supposed to be a cross-country road trip, one final chaotic hurrah, before adulthood claimed us for good. There were 5 of us: Ryan the planner, Jess, the loud one, Mike the skeptic, Tara, the quiet girl with a camera, and me. Nate, we'd packed into Rhiannon's van with snacks, cheap motel reservations, and a playlist we'd been adding to for months. That night, we were cutting across rural Arizona behind schedule, and too proud to stop early. Jess had found a shortcut. Route 19. It wasn't even on some of the GPS apps, but it would shave an hour off the drive. About 40 minutes in the road turned from pavement to gravel. Cell service died. The only lights were our high beams and the occasional flicker of desert stars above. When the van hit something sharp and the front left tire blew out, it felt like a punchline. We pulled off into a clearing near an old sun-bleached gas station that looked like it hadn't seen business since the 1970s. Across from it was a neon sign sputtering weakly in the dark. Desert Palms Motel. We had two choices: sleep in the van or ask the motel if they had a room and maybe a landline. Ryan and I voted for the motel. The lobby was dusty and stale, like someone had vacuumed 40 years ago and given up. The man behind the counter looked like he came with the building gray hair, yellowed undershirt, cigarette burning between two fingers. Car trouble, he rasped, as if that were the only reason anyone ever stopped here. Flat tire, Ryan said. You got a phone we can use? The man gave us a look that didn't quite count as friendly. Phone's been out since the storm, but I got rooms. $35. Cash. We exchanged glances. Ryan handed him two 20s. Room 209, the man muttered, handing over a rusted brass key on a cracked plastic tag. When we stepped out, Jess and Mike were already unloading their bags. No signal? Mike said, waving his dead phone. Figures room 209 was upstairs, the last one at the end of the row. The door groaned when we opened it. Inside was a faded carpet, two double beds, a crusty TV, and a bathroom that smelled like mildew. But the weirdest thing was the mirror. It was large, bolted into the wall above the dresser, but it reflected strangely, like the lighting was off or the glass warped. Jess tapped it and laughed. Feels like one of those funhouse mirrors. Tara didn't laugh. She was staring into it, camera hanging limp around her neck. There's something wrong with it, she said quietly. Later that night, we were all drifting off except Tara, who kept staring at the mirror like it was going to say something. I finally got up to pee and noticed her sitting cross-legged on the carpet staring. You okay? I asked. She didn't answer, just pointed. I turned and looked and saw 6 people in the reflection, only 5 in the room. I blinked, thinking maybe I was sleep-deprived, but the reflection didn't lie. Right there behind Mike stood another figure, faint shadowed, unmoving. I spun around. Nothing, just the room, just the 5 of us. Tara, I whispered, but she held up a finger to her lips. Don't speak, don't move. We stared into the mirror together. The 6th figure was still there. It looked like a man. Tall, broad shoulders, no face we could make out, just a featureless blur where eyes and a mouth should have been. Then it tilted its head. I stumbled backward and knocked over a lamp. Jess jerked awake. Ryan groaned. Mike muttered something, then sat up. What the hell are you two doing? He asked. I started, but the mirror was normal again. Just us. Tara's face had gone pale. She stood up silently and went to the bathroom. The door clicked shut. I didn't sleep again. The next morning, Tara wouldn't talk to anyone. She was up before the rest of us, already dressed and pacing the parking lot, camera strapped tight to her chest. Ryan went to check on the van. The spare was usable, but the lug nuts were missing, every last one, like someone had taken them in the night. Mike suggested going back into the lobby to ask for help, but the door was locked. No lights, no sign of the old man. We knocked, banged, nothing. Jess peeked through the window. There's no one in there. She said, it's empty. We stood there uncertain. Then Tara said, the man behind the desk, I don't think he was real. None of us knew what to say. And that's when we heard it, from the room upstairs, room 209, our room. The unmistakable sound of the mirror shattering. We rushed up the stairs. The door to 209 was ajar, swinging slightly with the wind. No one had touched it, but somehow it was open. I was the first inside. The room was exactly how we'd left it, except for the mirror. It had shattered long cracks, spiderwebbed across the glass, but none of the pieces had fallen. Instead, they held together like frozen in time. From certain angles, the cracks made a shape, an eye. Mike cursed under his breath. Jess took a step back. Tara stepped forward. She raised her camera. Click. What the hell happened? Ryan asked. We didn't do this. I said we were downstairs. Then who did? A long silence stretched between us. And then we noticed the door to the bathroom was closed. None of us had closed it. Ryan looked at me. I looked at Tara. She nodded. Ryan approached the door slowly. Hello, he said, knocking gently. No answer. He turned the knob and pushed it open. Empty. Just the cracked tile floor, a running faucet, in a single word scrawled in the fogged-up mirror. Return. What the hell does that mean? Jess whispered. No one answered, because we all noticed something else. The sixth reflection was back, standing in the mirror, and this time it was smiling. We left the room. There wasn't even a conversation about it. One by one we filed out like animals, sensing a forest fire approaching. No one wanted to speak. No one could. Outside, the heat of the Arizona sun was a brutal contrast to the cold that clung to room 209. I glanced back and saw the curtains fluttering through the open window. Though there was no breeze, Ryan broke the silence. We need to get out of here. Tire or not, we're not staying another night. I'll walk if I have to. Jess said I don't care. We could try to flag someone down. Mike offered, looking up and down the empty highway. But we all knew the truth. We hadn't seen a single car pass by since we'd arrived. Not one. Let's go back to the gas station, I said. Maybe there's something there, tools, a phone, anything. It wasn't far, just across the gravel lot, but it felt like crossing into enemy territory. The station had the same abandoned feel as the motel. The windows were dusty, the door half off its hinges. We stepped inside. It was even worse than we expected. The shelves were barren, covered in rat droppings and empty cans. The counter was smashed, and a single ancient radio sat behind it. Tara, silent until now, walked over and turned the dial. Nothing. Then, static. She froze. We all did. Through the static, a voice emerged. Garbled, faint. Room 209. Jess backed away. Nope, no, absolutely not. Tara turned the dial again, but the voice was gone. Only static. Ryan grabbed an old tire iron from behind the counter. We get the spare back on. Now, back at the van, we worked in silence. It took all of us to lift and brace the car. Somehow we found 3 lug nuts that would do. Not ideal, but maybe enough to make it down the road. That's when we noticed Tara was missing. We called for her. No answer. I turned, scanning the lot, and saw her, back on the motel balcony, standing in front of room 209, staring into the mirror. Tara, I shouted. She didn't move. The others turned and looked up. Jess cursed under her breath and sprinted across the lot with me, close behind. Ryan and Mike followed. We raced up the stairs, 2 at a time, hearts pounding in unison. When we reached the top, Tara was no longer in front of the mirror. She was inside the room. Ryan pushed the door open. The room was darker now. Unnaturally so. Shadows clung to the corners like living things. The mirror was whole again, no cracks, perfectly clean. And Tara was gone. Only her camera lay on the bed. We searched the room, the bathroom, under the beds. Nothing, no Tara. No sign she'd ever been there. Mike backed away toward the hallway. I'm done, I don't care. We're leaving now. Jess nodded. Her voice cracked when she spoke. What do we tell her family? We'll come back. With help, with cops, but we can't stay here. I picked up her camera, hoping it held a clue. There were only 2 photos on it, the one she took of the cracked mirror, and one more. I clicked it open. It showed all 5 of us, standing in front of the mirror. But Tara wasn't behind the camera. She was in the shot, and there were 6 reflections. The 6th was grinning. We drove away on 3 lug nuts and a prayer, not daring to stop until we reached a diner an hour down the highway. It was only there in the noise and warmth of people and again that we found the courage to speak. We reported her missing. No one found the Desert Palms Motel, not the gas station, not Route 19. They said it doesn't exist, but we remember. And sometimes when I look into a mirror for too long, I swear I see Tara, standing behind me, smiling,